Hey Bruce, before we start today, I want to ask you something really personal, and I think a lot of our viewers are going to relate to this deeply.
Of course, Lily. Go ahead.
Okay, so imagine this. You're at a party, someone walks up to you, they smile, they say, "Hey, how's it going?" And in your head, in that split second, your brain does something almost painful. It grabs the English words, pulls them into your native language, processes the meaning, forms a response in your native language, translates that response back into English, and then, finally, your mouth opens. And by that time, the conversation has already moved on. The moment is gone. The person is already talking to someone else. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, Lily, that is painfully familiar. That's honestly one of the most frustrating feelings in the world. You know the answer, you have the thought, but the words they don't come fast enough.
Exactly. And here's what most people don't realize. That frustrating delay, that lag, it is not about how many words you know. It is not about your grammar. It is not about your intelligence. It is about a habit, a deeply wired mental habit of translation. And today, Bruce and I are going to break that habit wide open.
We are going to show you exactly how your brain works during this translation process, why it slows you down, and most importantly, the specific, practical, science-backed techniques that will rewire your brain to think directly in English.
By the end of this video, you are going to understand how to stop being a translator and start being a speaker. And trust me, once you make this shift, English will never feel the same again.
So if you have ever felt that lag, that bottleneck, that exhausting mental delay, stay with us. Because what we're about to share could completely change the way you experience English forever.
Let's get into it.
All right, Lily, let's start at the very beginning, because I think a lot of people jump into learning English without really understanding what's happening inside their brain when they try to speak.
That's such a great point, Bruce. And honestly, understanding this, really understanding it, is the first step toward fixing it. So let's talk about what mental translation actually is and why the brain does it in the first place.
Right. So when most people learn a new language, especially in a traditional classroom setting, they are taught to learn English through their native language. Think about it. The teacher says a word in English, you write the translation in your native language next to it. The textbook has columns, English on the left, your language on the right. Every vocabulary quiz, every exercise, every flashcard, it trains your brain to link English words to their native language equivalents.
And that feels perfectly logical at the time, right? Because when you are a beginner, that is actually a useful shortcut. You need to understand what words mean, and your native language is the fastest bridge to understanding.
Absolutely. So I want to be clear, mental translation is not a mistake. It is a completely natural and even necessary stage of language learning. But here's the problem. It becomes a habit, and that habit follows you long after you need it anymore.
This is so important, Bruce. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine you are driving a car. When you first learn to drive, you are consciously thinking about every single thing. Press the brake, check the mirror, turn the wheels slowly, signal, look left, look right. Every action is deliberate and calculated.
Right, and it is exhausting when you first learn.
Exactly. But over time, what happens? Those actions become automatic. Your brain offloads them to a part of your nervous system that doesn't require conscious thought. You just drive. You think about your destination, you listen to music, you have a conversation, and the driving just happens.
So the goal is to make English feel like driving. Automatic, effortless, background processing.
Yes, but when you are translating, you are stuck in that beginner driver stage. Every single word, every single sentence, your brain is consciously calculating, and that takes enormous mental energy and time.
Let's make this even more concrete. I love the internet connection analogy for this.
Oh, yes, this is one of my favorites. Tell them, Bruce.
Okay, so imagine your natural speech in your native language is like a super fast fiber optic internet connection. Information travels at incredible speed. There's no buffering, there's no delay. You think a thought and the words just flow, instantly, smoothly, naturally.
We have all experienced that. In our own language, we do not think about words. We just speak.
Right. Now, when you translate in your head, imagine that same information, your thought, has to travel through a much slower, older connection, maybe dial-up internet. Remember dial-up, when websites took forever to load?
Oh, that painful buffering sound. Beep, boo, boo, beep, shh.
Exactly. That is your brain translating. The thought is there, the meaning is there, but it has to pass through this slow, inefficient process before it becomes speech. And in a real conversation, a live, dynamic, fast-moving conversation, that lag is absolutely devastating.
And here's something people don't often think about. When you are spending all of that mental energy on translation, you have almost nothing left for the other things a conversation requires.
Like what?
Like listening, like understanding what the other person is actually saying, like thinking about what you want to say next, like reading the other person's body language and tone, like adjusting your response based on the emotional context of the conversation. All of those things require mental bandwidth. And if your entire bandwidth is being consumed by translation, you have nothing left for the actual conversation.
So it is like trying to run 5 different programs on a computer that barely has enough memory for one.
Perfect. Exactly like that. Everything slows down, everything freezes. And the conversation, which should be natural, effortless, and enjoyable, becomes stressful, exhausting, and frustrating.
And this stress creates another problem, doesn't it, Lily?
It absolutely does. And this is the hidden cost that most people don't talk about. When speaking English feels stressful and exhausting, your brain starts to associate English with negative emotion, anxiety, fear, embarrassment, frustration, and over time, your brain tries to avoid those negative feelings by avoiding English situations altogether.
So the mental translation habit doesn't just slow you down in the moment, it actually feeds a fear cycle that can hold you back from speaking at all.
Exactly. And this is why so many English learners reach a plateau. They know hundreds, maybe thousands of words. They understand grammar rules, but they feel stuck. They feel like no matter how much they study, they can't break through to fluency. And the reason, the core fundamental reason, is that translation habit.
So what exactly is happening in the brain when we translate? Because I think if people understand the neuroscience, even just a little bit, it makes the solution much clearer.
Great point. Let's talk about that. So, when you think in your native language and then translate to English, you are using two different language centers in your brain. You're activating the areas associated with your native language, forming the thought there, and then routing that thought through a translation process before it reaches your speech production area. That's a long, inefficient neural pathway.
But when you think directly in English, what happens?
The pathway is much shorter and more direct. The thought bypasses the native language center entirely and goes straight to the English language center and then straight to speech production. It's faster, it's smoother, it's more natural. And here's the beautiful thing. The more you practice thinking directly in English, the stronger that direct pathway becomes.
Because of neuroplasticity, right?
Exactly. The brain is not fixed. It is constantly changing and adapting based on what you do repeatedly. Every time you choose to think in English instead of translating, you are physically strengthening the neural connections that make English feel natural and automatic. You are literally rewiring your brain.
That is so powerful. So it's not just a habit change, it's a physical change in your brain structure.
Right. And this is why consistency matters so much. One day of thinking in English won't rewire your brain, but consistent, daily practice, even for short periods, will gradually build those pathways until thinking in English becomes as natural as thinking in your native language.
Okay, so let's talk about something that I think a lot of viewers might be wondering right now. They might be thinking, this sounds great in theory, but how do I actually start thinking in English when my native language is so deeply ingrained?
That is the perfect question. And the answer is you start small. You don't try to think in English all day from day one. That would be like running a marathon on your first day of exercise. You would burn out immediately.
Instead, you build up gradually.
Exactly. And we're going to go through a complete roadmap for doing that throughout this video. But first, I want to introduce the core concept that underlies everything we're going to talk about today. And that concept is this: the direct link between thoughts and English words.
Ooh, I love this. Explain it.
Okay, so right now, for most English learners, the mental process looks like this. You experience something, you see, hear, feel, or think something. That experience is processed in your native language. Then it gets translated into English. Then English words come out.
There is a middle step, the native language processing step.
Exactly. And the goal of thinking in English is to remove that middle step entirely. The process should look like this. You experience something, English words come out. Direct, immediate, no translation in between.
But that sounds almost impossible for a lot of learners, doesn't it?
It sounds impossible because they imagine trying to do it all at once. But the way you build this direct link is through something called anchoring, connecting English words directly to experiences, sensations, emotions, and images, rather than to native language words.
So instead of learning the word apple by connecting it to the word for apple in your native language, you connect the English word apple directly to the image of an apple, the smell of an apple, the crunch of biting into one, the sweetness on your tongue.
Exactly. And when that connection is strong enough, when you see an apple or taste one or think about one, the English word is the first thing that appears in your mind, not the native language word, the English word, directly, instantly.
And that's the beginning of thinking in English.
That's the very beginning. And over time, this direct connection expands from single words to phrases to sentences to thoughts to entire conversations. But it all starts with that first anchor.
This is so interesting because I think a lot of learners try to learn English in the abstract, studying grammar rules, memorizing word lists, and those things have their place. But what you're describing is something much more physical, much more sensory.
Right. Language is fundamentally a sensory, emotional experience. Before humans had written language, before we had grammar textbooks, we communicated through sounds that were directly linked to the physical world around us. And when you approach English learning that way, as a sensory, experiential thing rather than an academic exercise, something really shifts.
The learning becomes deeper, more permanent, more intuitive.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to build throughout this video, a sensory, experiential, deeply anchored relationship with English that allows you to think, feel and communicate directly in the language without any translation needed.
I am so excited for this, and I know our viewers are too. But before we move on, Lily, let's quickly address something important, because some people might be thinking, I've been translating for years. Is it too late for me? Can my brain really change?
This is such a beautiful question, and the answer is a resounding, absolute yes. It is never too late. The research on neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and form new connections, is incredibly clear on this. The brain remains adaptable throughout your entire life. Adults learn new languages every single day. Elderly people develop new skills and habits. The brain is not fixed at any age.
So no matter how long you have been translating, no matter how deeply ingrained that habit is,
You can change it. With the right techniques, consistent practice, and a little bit of patience with yourself, you can absolutely rewire your brain to think in English. I have seen it happen countless times. And today, we are going to give you the exact tools to make it happen for you.
perfect. And on that incredibly encouraging note, let's not skip over something really important that I want to highlight about what Lily just said. Patience with yourself. This is not a 3-day transformation. It is a gradual building process, and every single step forward matters.
Beautifully said, Bruce. Every step matters, even if it's just one English thought before bed tonight. That one thought is one new connection in your brain, and connections add up.
All right. Now that we understand the problem, and we understand why it exists, let's start talking about the solutions, starting with one of the most powerful and accessible techniques available to any English learner anywhere in the world: internal narration.
Oh, yes. This is one of my absolute favorites. Stay with us, everyone, because this next section might be the most immediately useful thing you hear today. Okay, Bruce, internal narration. Let's talk about what it is, why it works, and exactly how to do it.
I love this technique because it requires zero money, zero equipment, zero special environment. You can do it anywhere, at any time, completely privately. Nobody around you even knows you're practicing English.
That's one of the most beautiful things about it. So let me start by explaining what internal narration actually means. Internal narration is the practice of narrating your own life in English as it happens, inside your head.
Like a sports commentator, but for your own daily life.
I love that comparison. Yes, exactly like that. Imagine you are the commentator for your own life documentary, and your job is to describe what is happening in real time, in English.
So if I am walking into my kitchen in the morning, instead of just walking into my kitchen, I am narrating that experience in English inside my head.
Exactly. And let's actually demonstrate this, because I think hearing specific examples will make it much clearer.
Great idea. Let's say it's 7 in the morning. I wake up. What does the internal narration sound like?
Okay, so at the very basic level, the level that absolute beginners can start at, it sounds like this. I wake up, I open my eyes, the room is bright, I feel tired, I sit up, my feet touch the floor is cold.
Simple subject-verb sentences. Almost like a children's book.
Exactly. And that is perfectly fine to start with. Remember, we are building a habit, and habits are built through repetition of simple actions, not through trying to be complex from the beginning. Those simple sentences are training your brain to form English thoughts automatically.
Okay, so we're not trying to be Shakespeare on day 1.
Definitely not. But here's what I want our viewers to understand. Those simple sentences repeated every morning as you wake up, every time you make coffee, every time you sit down at your desk, those sentences are literally carving new pathways in your brain. every repetition strengthens the connection.
And then, over time, the narration can become more complex.
Right. So after a few weeks of practicing simple sentences, you start adding more detail. Instead of, I feel tired, you might say, I feel a bit groggy this morning. My body feels heavy. I didn't sleep well last night because I was thinking about work.
So now we're describing feelings, states, reasons, more complex thoughts.
And notice what just happened there, Bruce. I didn't sleep well last night because I was thinking about work. That is a complex sentence. It has a past tense verb, a time reference, and a causal clause with a present continuous verb. But the speaker didn't stop to analyze the grammar. It just came naturally because it was describing a real feeling in real time.
That is the magic of internal narration. The grammar comes naturally when you are focused on expression, not on grammar.
This is one of the most counterintuitive things about language learning. When you study grammar as a rule, okay, I need to use the past perfect here because the action happened before another past action, it becomes paralyzing. But when you are simply trying to describe what happened last night in real time, your brain naturally reaches for the right tense because that's what feels right to express the meaning.
Because children don't learn grammar as rules, do they? They learn it through patterns of usage.
Exactly. A child doesn't know what present continuous means, but they know that when they are currently doing something, they say, I am running, not I run. They learned that through hearing it thousands of times in real contexts. And internal narration is recreating that same natural acquisition process for adults.
Okay, let me push on this a little bit, because I think some people might be thinking, well, what if I make a mistake in my narration? What if I use the wrong tense or the wrong word?
This is such an important point, and my answer is, it does not matter, not at this stage. The purpose of internal narration is not to produce perfect English. The purpose is to build the habit of thinking in English. If you are thinking in English, even imperfect English, you are succeeding.
Because even imperfect direct English is better than perfect translated English in terms of building the thinking habit.
Exactly. Imperfect direct English is training your brain for the right thing. Perfect translated English is training your brain for the wrong thing. So embrace the imperfection. Let yourself think in English even when you're not sure if you're using the right word or the right grammar. Your brain will gradually self-correct through exposure.
That is so liberating. I think a lot of learners, especially intermediate learners, are so afraid of making mistakes that they freeze. They stop themselves from even trying.
And that fear of mistakes is actually what keeps the translation habit alive, because you translate to make sure you're saying the right thing. But when you give yourself permission to be imperfect, you can start thinking directly and let the corrections come naturally over time.
All right, so let's get really practical now. Can we give viewers a step-by-step guide for how to start internal narration practice today?
All right, so let's get really practical now. Can we give viewers a step-by-step guide for how to start internal narration practice today?
Why a routine? Why not just randomly throughout the day?
Great question. Because routines are already automatic. You don't have to think about what you're doing, which means your mind is free to focus on the narration in English. If you are doing something new or challenging, your mental resources are taken up by the task itself. A routine frees up that space for English.
Smart. Okay, step 2.
Step 2. Start with what you can see and touch. In the first week, only describe what is physically around you and what you are physically doing. I pick up the kettle. The kettle is heavy. I pour water. The water is hot. The steam rises. Keep it visible, tangible, immediate.
Concrete nouns and simple action verbs.
Right. Step 3. Add adjectives and sensory details. Once you are comfortable with the basic structure, start describing how things feel, look, sound, smell. The coffee smells rich and warm. The mug feels smooth in my hands. The kitchen is quiet this morning. The light is soft and gray.
You are painting a picture with words.
And by doing that, you are connecting English words not just to their definitions, but to actual sensory experiences. That makes the words stick. That makes them accessible instantly without translation.
What's step 4?
Step 4. Narrate your feelings and thoughts. This is where it gets really interesting and powerful. Once you are comfortable describing the physical, start describing the internal. I feel a little stressed today. I am worried about the meeting this afternoon. I am not sure what my boss will say, but I am going to try my best.
So now we're in the territory of emotions, intentions, worries, hopes.
And this is where English starts to feel deeply personal. When your emotions and inner thoughts are expressed in English, the language becomes part of who you are. It is no longer just a communication tool. It is the language of your interior life.
Wow, that's profound when you think about it. The language of your interior life.
Isn't it? And this is actually what native speakers and bilingual people describe when they talk about dreaming in a language or thinking in a language. It means that language has become part of your interior world, not just your external communication.
And we want English to be part of our interior world.
Exactly. Step 5. Start connecting past and future to your present narration. So now you're not just narrating what is happening, you're narrating what happened and what will happen. Yesterday, I was really tired after work. I came home and I just sat on the sofa for an hour. I didn't feel like cooking. So tonight, I'm going to meal prep earlier. I'll make a big pot of soup so I have food for the whole week.
So the narration starts to expand into storytelling.
And storytelling is the most natural form of human communication. We are a storytelling species. When your English thoughts can tell your own story, you have made an enormous leap forward.
Okay, I want to address something here, because viewers might be wondering, how does this low-pressure internal practice prepare you for high-stakes external communication? Those feel really different.
That is such a wise question, and here is the answer. All communication, whether it's internal or external, uses the same cognitive processes. When you narrate internally in English, you are training your brain to form English thoughts, access English vocabulary, and use English grammar in a real-time, pressure-free environment.
So when the pressure of a real conversation comes,
the processes are already trained. Your brain already knows how to do the job in English. The only new variable is that now someone else is listening. And because the cognitive burden of forming English thoughts has already been offloaded to the automatic part of your brain, your conscious mind is free to focus on the social aspects of the conversation, listening, responding, connecting.
it is brilliant in its simplicity. Practice the hard cognitive work in a safe, private environment. Then the hard work is already done when you need it in public.
Exactly. Athletes do this all the time. They practice their skills repetitively in training so that in competition, those skills are automatic. Musicians rehearse until their fingers know the notes without thinking, so that in performance, they can focus on the feeling of the music. We are doing the same thing with language.
I love that parallel. Language as athletic training.
There is actually a growing field of research that treats language fluency as a kind of cognitive athleticism, and the training methods parallel athletic training in really interesting ways.
And just like athletic training, there are progressions. You don't lift the heaviest weights on day one. You start light and build up.
Right. And with internal narration, the progression looks like this. Week 1, simple sentences about physical surroundings. Week 2, add feelings and simple opinions. Week 3, narrate past events. Week 4, plan future actions. Week 5, have imaginary conversations in English inside your head.
Wait, imaginary conversations? Tell me more about that.
This is one of the most powerful advanced techniques. Once you are comfortable narrating your own monologue, you can start having imaginary dialogues in English inside your head. You play both roles. You ask yourself questions and answer them. You rehearse conversations you expect to have. You replay conversations that already happened, but this time you say everything you wish you had said.
So you are practicing the social, interactive dimension of English completely privately.
And you can do this as many times as you need to with zero social risk. You cannot embarrass yourself in an imaginary conversation. You can stumble, restart, try different words, experiment. It is the safest possible practice environment.
And then, when a similar real conversation comes up in your life,
Your brain goes, "Oh, I've done this before," and it reaches for the English it already rehearsed. The conversation flows so much more naturally.
this is incredibly powerful. I want to do a quick mini exercise here for our viewers, because I think hearing this conceptually is one thing, but actually experiencing it is another.
Great idea. Let's do it.
Okay, viewers, I want you to pause for just a moment. Look around at wherever you are right now. Maybe you are sitting at a desk. Maybe you're on a sofa. Maybe you're in bed with headphones on. Look at the first 3 objects you can see. And then, in your head, right now, say the English name of those objects.
Just the names. Simple. The chair, the window, the lamp, whatever you see. Say the English word in your head, not the word in your native language. The English word. Directly. Immediately.
Did you do it? Good. That was your first step. That was you making a direct connection between a visual experience and an English word, without translation. And it was easy, right?
Because you already know those words. You just practiced accessing them directly, without the intermediate native language step. And that is exactly what internal narration builds up over time, but for more and more complex thoughts and expressions.
Beautiful. Okay, I think we've given everyone a really solid foundation on internal narration, but there's something we haven't talked about yet that takes this technique to a whole new level.
Are you talking about sensory anchoring?
I am indeed, because I know that's the next part of what we want to cover. And I have to say, this section completely transformed the way I personally think about vocabulary.
It's one of the most fascinating sections we've prepared for today. But before we get there, I just want to check in with everyone watching. If this video is giving you real value so far, and I truly hope it is, please take a second to like this video and share it with a friend who is learning English. Your support helps us create more of these in-depth lessons, and it means the world to us.
And if you want even more English listening and speaking practice, make sure you check out our podcast playlist on this channel. There are so many useful episodes designed specifically to help you improve your English in a natural, relaxed way. Perfect for listening while you commute, exercise, or just relax.
All right, now stay with us, because this next section, sensory labeling and environmental anchors, this is where English learning gets truly fascinating. And I promise you, most learners have never heard this approach before.
Okay, Lily, let's talk about why this technique is so different from traditional vocabulary learning. Because I think for a lot of people, vocabulary learning means flashcards, word lists, memorizing translations.
And all of those approaches have one thing in common. They connect English words to other words, either the translation or a definition, word to word. And the problem with word-to-word learning is that it keeps the native language in the loop.
The English word sits on top of the native language word like a label, and to access the English, you have to go through the native language first.
Exactly. But what if, instead of connecting English words to other words, we connected English words directly to experiences, to sensations, to the physical sensory reality of what the word represents?
Tell us exactly what you mean by that.
Okay, let's take the word rough. Now, the traditional approach would be to learn that rough means, and then you look it up in a dictionary in your native language, and you write down the translation. And now, rough is linked to its translation.
And every time you see or hear the word rough, your brain goes, rough, translation, meaning.
That's right. There's a two-step process. Now, the sensory approach is completely different. Instead of looking up the word, you find something rough in your environment right now. Maybe the texture of a wall, maybe a piece of sandpaper, maybe your jeans, and you touch it, you feel it, you notice the texture, the slight scraping sensation, the resistance, the way it feels against your fingertip.
And as you feel it, you say or think the word rough.
Right. You are creating a direct neural connection between the word rough and the actual physical sensation of roughness. And now, whenever you touch something rough, the English word is right there, immediately, because it is linked to the sensation itself, not to a translation.
That is a completely different kind of memory. That is not linguistic memory. That is sensory memory.
And sensory memory is much stronger, much more durable, and much more instantly accessible than linguistic memory. Think about smells. Have you ever smelled something and been instantly transported back to a specific memory? Maybe your grandmother's kitchen or the ocean when you were a child.
Oh, absolutely. Smells are incredibly powerful memory triggers.
Right. That is sensory memory at work. It bypasses the analytical brain entirely and goes straight to emotional and experiential memory. And when you anchor English words to sensory experiences, those words get stored in the same deep, instant access part of the brain.
This completely explains why children acquire vocabulary so much faster than adults who study from textbooks. Children are experiencing the world, touching, smelling, seeing, hearing, tasting, and language is being layered directly onto those experiences.
Exactly. Hot means hot because a child touched a hot pot and was told hot. The word and the experience are fused. For the adult studying from a textbook, hot is just a word linked to a translation. The fusion with real sensory experience is missing.
So we can recreate that fusion as adults.
We absolutely can, and it is one of the most enjoyable vocabulary techniques I know because it gets you out of your head and into your world.
Let's talk about how to actually implement this, because I know viewers want specifics.
Of course. So the technique is called environmental anchoring, and here is how you do it. Step 1. Choose your environment. Start with one room in your home. Your bedroom, your kitchen, your office, wherever you spend a lot of time.
Just one room to start?
Just one, because we are going deep, not wide. We are creating strong sensory connections for a manageable number of words, rather than shallow connections for too many words at once.
Okay, step 1, one room. Step 2?
Step 2. Walk slowly through the room. Look at every object. Touch things when you can. Notice the textures, the weights, the temperatures. Pick up objects. Feel their edges. And for each object or quality you notice, say the English word in your head, or out loud if you can, and simultaneously notice the sensory experience.
So, I pick up my coffee mug. It's warm. Slightly rough texture on the outside, smooth on the inside, heavy. And I say to myself, Mug, warm, textured, smooth, heavy.
Perfect. And notice, no translation needed. You don't need to know the word in your native language. You are going directly from the sensation to the English word. If you don't know the English word for something, this is your cue to look it up. But when you look it up, don't just read the translation. Immediately touch the object, look at it, smell it if relevant, and say the word while engaging with the sensory experience.
So the word is learned in context, anchored to reality.
And it will stick in a way that words learned from a list never do. Step 3. Repeat the walk multiple times over several days. You are not going to anchor all of these words firmly in one session. Each time you walk through the room and engage with the objects and their English labels, you are reinforcing those neural connections.
And over time?
Over time, you don't even need to consciously think the word anymore. You reach for your coffee mug in the morning and your brain just knows it's a mug. In English, without any translation, without any effort. It is just there.
Let's talk about expanding beyond physical objects. Because objects are one thing, but what about sensations, emotions, abstract concepts?
Great point. The same principle applies, but we have to be a little more creative. For sensations, temperature, texture, pressure, pain, pleasure, the technique is direct. Experience the sensation and anchor the English word to it. Walk barefoot on grass and think cool, soft, fresh, damp. Touch ice and think cold, smooth, slippery, sharp. Eat something spicy and think hot, burning, tingly, intense.
For emotions, it's a little different.
For emotions, you anchor during the emotion itself. When you feel anxious, in that moment, say to yourself in English, I feel anxious. My heart is racing. My stomach is tight. I feel uneasy. You are labeling the emotional experience with English words as you feel it.
So the English word for anxious gets connected to the actual physical and emotional experience of anxiety, not to its translation.
And that makes it so much more accessible in conversation. When someone asks, how are you feeling, and you are feeling anxious, the word is right there, anchored to the feeling itself. You don't have to translate. The feeling and the English word are the same thing.
This is amazing. What about abstract concepts? Things like justice or freedom or ambition, things you can't touch or smell.
For abstract concepts, we use stories and examples instead of sensory experiences. You connect the abstract word to a specific, concrete, personal example from your own life. Justice is not a translation. Justice is that time when you did the right thing, even when it was hard. Or that time when you saw someone helped who really needed it. Freedom is that specific feeling you had the first time you traveled alone, or the first time you made your own decision as an adult.
So abstract words get anchored to personal memories and emotions.
And personal memories are the strongest anchors of all, because they are emotionally charged, specific, and deeply personal. Words anchored to personal memories don't fade. They stay. They are immediately accessible, and they carry the emotional resonance that makes communication feel authentic and alive.
Now, I want to talk about something that is very relevant to 2026. The digital tools and augmented reality apps that can take environmental anchoring to a whole new level.
Oh, this is so exciting because the technology available now is absolutely revolutionary for language learners.
Let's talk about some of these tools, because I know a lot of our viewers are tech-savvy and always looking for great apps and tools.
Okay, so in 2026, Augmented reality language learning tools have become incredibly sophisticated. There are apps that use your phone's camera to overlay English labels onto real-world objects in your environment. You point your phone at your kitchen counter and you see counter, tile, faucet, cabinet, handle, English words floating over the actual objects in your real space.
So you are literally seeing your world in English.
Isn't that incredible? And what makes this so powerful is that the label appears in context, overlaid on the actual object. So your brain anchors the word to the visual and spatial experience of the object, exactly the way we've been describing.
And the technology goes beyond just labeling objects, right?
Right. The most advanced apps can now recognize actions and describe them in English. You are washing the dishes, and the app shows the phrase, I am washing the dishes. You are walking upstairs, and you see, I am climbing the stairs. It is real-time internal narration assistance. The app literally helps you narrate your own life.
For learners who struggle to generate the narration on their own at first, this is a game changer.
Absolutely. It gives you the English language scaffolding until your brain can generate it independently. And gradually, you rely on the app less and less because your brain has internalized the patterns.
What about AI conversation partners? Because I know that has exploded in recent years.
AI conversation partners are extraordinary tools for this stage of practice. You can have a real-time English conversation with an AI that is patient, adaptive, available 24 hours a day, and never judges you for making mistakes. You can practice at any time of day, for any length of time, on any topic.
And the AI can adjust its language to your level.
Exactly. Modern AI conversation partners can detect your level from how you speak and adjust their vocabulary, sentence complexity, and pace accordingly. So if you are a beginner, the AI speaks simply and clearly. As you improve, the AI naturally begins using more complex language.
It grows with you.
It grows with you. And because there is no social pressure, no risk of embarrassment, no fear of judgment, you can take risks in your English that you might not take in a real conversation. You can try out new vocabulary, you can experiment with complex sentences, you can say something wrong, correct yourself, and try again, all without any social consequence.
So AI conversation practice builds exactly the kind of cognitive confidence that then transfers to real human conversations.
Right, because your brain gets used to generating English directly without the translation buffer in a safe environment. And when the real human conversation comes, the brain already knows how to do it.
Now, let me ask you something. For viewers who don't have access to these apps, maybe they have an older phone or limited internet access, or they prefer a more old-school approach, can environmental anchoring still work without the technology?
100%. In fact, the original environmental anchoring technique, before any technology, was even simpler and possibly more effective in some ways. Post-it notes.
Old Faithful.
Yes, the simplest, most accessible, most portable environmental anchoring tool in history. You write English words on small sticky notes and you stick them on the objects around your home. Your mirror says mirror. Your door says door. Your fridge says refrigerator. Your window says window.
Every time you look at the object, you see the English word.
And eventually, the word and the object are fused in your mind. You no longer need the note. You reach for your water and you think, water. You turn on the light and you think, switch. You sit down and you think, chair. In English, automatically.
Scaling up from objects to actions, can you use sticky notes for that too?
You can get creative. Some people write phrases on the notes. Not just fridge, but I am opening the fridge. Not just sink, but I am washing my hands. So every time you do the action, you see the English phrase for it.
That is brilliant! You are literally posting the narration in your environment.
Until the narration moves from your environment into your head, and then the notes can come down.
I want to do another mini exercise here, because I think this is the kind of thing that really locks in the concept.
Go for it.
Okay, viewers, I want you to look at your hands right now. Look at them closely. Notice the texture of your skin, the lines in your palm, the shape of your fingers. Notice if they're warm or cool, if your skin is dry or smooth.
And as you do that, think these English words: hands, fingers, palm, skin, warm, smooth, soft, or rough, or dry, whatever is true for you right now.
You are doing environmental anchoring right now. You are connecting English words to a real, immediate sensory experience. That connection is being laid down in your brain right now as you do this.
And wasn't that easy? There was no grammar, no translation, no textbook, just your hands and English words. This is how effortless vocabulary acquisition can be when it is anchored to the real world.
I love this so much. Okay, we've talked about building the foundation of English thinking through internal narration and environmental anchoring, but now I want to talk about what happens when we need to respond in real time to other people, because that is where things get really interesting and for most people, really stressful.
Reactive fluency, the ability to respond in real time in English without freezing. This is what separates someone who knows English from someone who speaks English fluently, and we're going to tackle it head-on right now.
But before we do, just a quick reminder. If you are finding tremendous value in this lesson, and I really hope you are, make sure you like and share this video, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We make these long, detailed, high-quality English learning videos because we genuinely want to help you succeed, and your support means everything.
Now, let's talk about reactive fluency. This is where the game really changes. Stay with us. Okay, Bruce, let's talk about one of the most specific and debilitating experiences for English learners, the freeze. You know what I mean. Someone asks you a question, a simple question maybe, and suddenly your mind goes completely blank. Everything you ever learned about English just vanishes.
The blank mind freeze. Oh yes, I know it well. And it is one of the most discouraging experiences a language learner can have.
And here's why it happens. When we are under social pressure, when someone is waiting for our response, when we are aware of being observed, when we feel that any mistake will be judged, our brain's threat response activates. The amygdala, the part of your brain that handles fear and threat, starts firing.
Fight or flight.
Exactly. Fight or flight. And when fight or flight activates, blood flow is redirected away from the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for language, reasoning, and complex thinking, and toward the parts of the brain responsible for physical survival.
So your language brain is literally being shut down by fear.
Temporarily. And this is why the freeze happens. It's not because you don't know English. It's because your threat response is flooding your system and temporarily blocking access to your language centers.
So the solution to the freeze is not to learn more English. It's to calm the threat response.
Yes, and there are very specific techniques for doing this. But before we get to those, I want to talk about the most powerful tool for staying in English while your brain is searching for words. And that tool is fillers and fixed phrases.
Oh, this is so practical. Let's dig in.
Okay, so in every natural conversation, even conversations between native speakers, there are constant fillers. These are sounds, words, and phrases that hold the floor while the speaker is thinking of what to say next.
Like and
Yes, and are the most basic ones, but native speakers use a much richer set of fillers than that. Let's list some. Let me think about that for a second. That's a great question. You know what? I was just thinking about that. How do I put this? If I remember correctly, well, the thing is, honestly speaking, to be fair, I mean, you know what I mean? Kinda like, sort of. Actually,
These are everywhere in native English conversation.
they are absolutely everywhere. And here's the key insight. These phrases are not mistakes. They are not weaknesses. They are social signals that say, I am present, I am engaged, I am thinking. They tell the other person that you are participating in the conversation even while your brain is formulating the content of your response.
So, as an English learner, using fillers is actually a sign of sophisticated communication, not a sign of weakness.
Exactly. And here's the even more important reason to master these fillers. They keep you in English. If you don't have a filler available, what happens? The silence stretches, the social pressure builds, panic sets in. Your brain switches to your native language to try to find the word. And once your brain has switched to your native language, getting back to English thinking in real time is much harder.
But if you have a filler phrase ready, let me think about that for a second. You have bought yourself 3, 4, 5 seconds while staying entirely in English.
And in those 3, 4, 5 seconds, your brain can actually find the word or phrase you need. Because the filler keeps the conversation flowing, reduces the social pressure slightly, and gives your language centers the time they need without the freeze happening.
So fillers are like a cognitive bridge.
They really are. They bridge the gap between the question and the answer while keeping the brain in English mode. Now, let's be really practical about this. I want to give viewers a core set of filler phrases to memorize and practice because these are not things you want to be thinking about in the moment. They need to be automatic.
Right. The whole point is that they become so automatic that they come out effortlessly, without conscious thought, freeing up your mental resources for the actual content of your response.
Exactly. So here is your core filler toolkit for when you need a moment to think. Let me think about that. Good question. Give me a second. How do I put this? That's interesting, actually. I've never thought about it quite that way before.
For when you're not sure of a word, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, the thing you use when you... It's kinda like, what would you call it? I can't think of the exact word, but basically...
For when you need to buy even more time. So, here's the thing. Well, the way I see it. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, basically.
And for recovering after a mistake or confusion, let me rephrase that. Actually, what I meant was, sorry, let me start over. What I'm trying to say is,
These are your rescue phrases. They keep you in the conversation even when things don't go perfectly.
and I want to emphasize something that Lily has been implying throughout this section. Fluency is not about perfection. Fluency is about flow. A fluent speaker can say the wrong word, catch themselves, and correct naturally without the conversation breaking down. That recovery skill, the ability to correct and continue without freezing, is a mark of genuine fluency.
Beautifully said. The recovery is part of fluency, and practicing fillers and recovery phrases gives you the ability to recover gracefully in English and keep the conversation moving.
Okay, let's talk about something else that is crucial for reactive fluency, and that is how emotional cues can actually help you bypass the analytical brain and access English more quickly.
Oh, this is fascinating. This is where neuroscience and language learning overlap in really interesting ways. So let me explain. When we think analytically, When we are trying to find the grammatically perfect sentence, the most precise word, the most logically structured argument, we are using the prefrontal cortex, the analytical, logical brain.
And that's actually the slow part of the brain.
For language production, yes, because the prefrontal cortex processes things sequentially and deliberately. It is great for solving math problems, not so great for spontaneous conversation.
But when we respond emotionally, when we are excited, engaged, amused, surprised, something different happens.
Right. Emotional responses bypass the prefrontal cortex and come from deeper, faster brain structures. And here's the fascinating thing. When you are emotionally engaged in a conversation, your language production actually becomes faster and more natural because the emotional content drives the words rather than analytical construction.
So the key to faster, more reactive English is to engage emotionally with the conversation rather than analytically constructing it.
Exactly. And this is why conversations about topics you are passionate about often feel easier in a second language than conversations about neutral topics. When you are excited about something, the words come faster because emotion is driving them.
So how do we use this practically?
A few ways. First, when you are practicing English conversation, with a partner, with an AI, with yourself, choose topics you genuinely care about, not neutral textbook topics. Topics that make you feel something, your passions, your interests, your frustrations, your dreams. The emotional engagement will activate faster language production.
And avoid emotionally flat practice, like reciting prepared sentences.
Right. Prepared, recited sentences engage the analytical brain, slow and deliberate. Live, passionate conversation engages the emotional brain, fast and intuitive.
What's the second way to use this?
Second, practice responding to emotional content. When you hear something surprising, funny, sad, or exciting, in English, practice responding immediately from the gut before the analytical brain has time to intervene. Wow, that's amazing. No way. I can't believe that. That's so sad. I love that. These short, immediate reactions are emotional language, fast, automatic, and entirely in English.
And starting a response with an emotional reaction buys the analytical brain time to formulate the more complex parts of the response.
Exactly. Wow, that's really interesting. Wow, that's 4 words, completely automatic. But those 4 words have started the conversation in English, demonstrated engagement, and giving your brain a few seconds to formulate the substantive response.
It's like a warm-up for the analytical brain.
A perfect analogy. The emotional response is the warm-up. The analytical response is the main performance. And the warm-up makes the main performance go much more smoothly.
Let's talk about AI-driven conversation practice, because this is something that has transformed the way people can practice reactive fluency in 2026.
AI conversation practice is genuinely one of the most significant developments in language learning of the past several years. Because reactive fluency requires real-time practice, you cannot develop it by reading or by passive study. You need to actually have conversations. But finding a conversation partner who is available when you need them, patient with your level, focused on your learning goals, that's hard.
AI removes all of those constraints.
Completely. Modern AI conversation partners can simulate a wide variety of conversation scenarios. A job interview, a first date, a business meeting, a casual chat at a coffee shop, a phone call with a customer service representative. And they can do this at any level of difficulty, at any time of day, for as long as you want.
And the key thing for developing reactive fluency is that these conversations can be done in real time. The AI responds to what you actually say, creating real conversational dynamics.
Right. You cannot predict what the AI is going to say, so you cannot prepare a rehearsed answer. You have to actually think on your feet, in English, in real time. That is exactly the kind of practice that develops reactive fluency.
And you get to do it as many times as you need, in a completely zero-pressure environment.
Which means that gradually, through repetition of this low-stakes reactive practice, your brain builds the ability to respond reactively in English, and then when a real conversation comes, it is not a completely novel experience. Your brain has done this before, in English, and the fluency transfers.
All right, I want to do a reactive fluency exercise right now, because I think our viewers have been listening for a while, and this is a good moment for active practice.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Okay, I am going to say a statement, and viewers, your job is to respond immediately, in English, out loud, or in your head, right now, without stopping to think. Don't try to be perfect, just react. Ready?
Ready?
Your English teacher just told you that you have a speaking test tomorrow morning. Go!
Oh no, already? I thought it was next week. Okay. I need to review my notes tonight. I can do this. I just need to practice speaking a bit more this evening. It'll be fine.
Did you see what Lily just did? She reacted emotionally first. Oh no, already? I thought it was next week. Pure emotional response. Then the analytical thinking kicked in. Okay, I need to review my notes. The emotion came first. It drove the conversation, and then the analytical content followed naturally.
And even the mistakes are fine. I thought it was next week. That's a completely natural spoken English phrase. It flows naturally because it comes from genuine emotional reaction.
Viewers, if you tried that exercise, even if you only said 1 or 2 words out loud or in your head, that was reactive fluency practice. That was you generating English in response to a real-time stimulus without preparation. That is exactly the skill we are building.
And the more you do it, the faster and more naturally it comes. Now, we've covered so much incredible ground today. Internal narration, sensory anchoring, reactive fluency, fillers, emotional responses. But there is one more piece to this puzzle, and it might be the most important piece of all for the long term.
Building the cognitive stamina to sustain English thinking over time. Because all of these techniques are incredibly powerful, but they require mental effort, especially in the beginning. And without a strategy for managing that effort and building stamina gradually, many learners burn out before they break through.
This is so real. So many learners hit a wall. They make great progress, and then they get mentally tired, and they stop. And the momentum they've built starts to fade. We don't want that to happen to you.
So let's talk about building cognitive stamina for long-term success. This is the final section, and it is the one that brings everything together. Okay, cognitive stamina. Let's talk about what this actually means, Lily, because I think it's a term that might sound intimidating, but is actually very relatable.
Right. So cognitive stamina for English thinking is simply your brain's ability to maintain English as your dominant language mode for extended periods of time. When you first start thinking in English, even a few minutes of sustained English thought can feel mentally tiring. Your brain is working hard to build and use new neural pathways that are not yet fully developed.
Like running a muscle that hasn't been trained. The first run is exhausting, but over time, the muscle gets stronger.
Exactly. And the good news is that cognitive stamina for English thinking builds very predictably with consistent practice. The key is a smart training strategy, not random, inconsistent effort, but a structured progression that challenges your brain just enough to grow without overwhelming it to the point of burnout.
So let's talk about that roadmap, because I know you have a specific progression in mind.
I do. And I want to be clear that this is not a rigid program that everyone must follow exactly. It is a general framework that you can adapt based on your own schedule, your current level, and how quickly your brain adapts. But it gives you a direction and a structure, which is really important.
Without a structure, most people's practice is inconsistent, and inconsistency is the enemy of habit formation.
Exactly. So here is the roadmap for building cognitive stamina. We are going to call this the English Mind Training Plan, and it is a 12-week progression.
12 weeks. That's 3 months of dedicated practice.
3 months of consistent, structured practice. And by the end of those 12 weeks, most people find that English thinking is starting to feel genuinely natural for significant periods of time. That doesn't mean it's perfect. That doesn't mean translation never happens, but it means the shift has begun in a deep, lasting way.
Let's go through it week by week.
Perfect. Weeks 1 and 2, this is the foundation stage. Your goal in these first 2 weeks is simply to establish the habit of English mode practice. Not to be impressive, not to be complex, just to make it a consistent part of your day.
What does that look like concretely?
In weeks 1 and 2, you commit to 10 minutes of deliberate English thinking every single day. That's it, 10 minutes. You can do your morning routine narration, you can do your environmental anchoring walk, you can have a simple conversation with an AI partner. The key is 10 minutes every day at the same time. The consistency of time is important because it helps the brain form a habit loop.
Because habits form most powerfully when they are attached to a specific time and trigger.
Right. If you practice English thinking after every morning cup of coffee, that cup of coffee becomes the trigger. Over time, drinking your morning coffee will naturally prime your brain to switch to English thinking mode. The routine becomes automatic.
What happens in weeks 3 and 4?
Weeks 3 and 4, the expansion stage. You increase your daily English thinking session to 20 minutes. But now, you are also adding a second, shorter session of 5 minutes at a different point in the day. So total, about 25 minutes of deliberate English thinking per day.
2 sessions, different times of day.
This is important because it trains your brain to switch into English thinking mode, not just at one fixed time, but at different points during the day. This is what makes the thinking more flexible and accessible in real-life situations, which happen at all hours.
Makes sense. What about weeks 5 and 6?
Weeks 5 and 6, the deepening stage. Now you are spending 30 minutes in your main session, and you are starting to introduce more complex English thinking. Instead of just narrating what you see and do, you are beginning to use your English thinking session to actually think through problems.
Practical problem solving in English.
Yes, and this is powerful because it forces your English thinking into the territory of abstract reasoning, planning, analyzing, which requires more complex vocabulary and more complex sentence structures. Instead of, I pick up the cup, you are thinking, I need to decide what to make for dinner. The options are pasta or soup, but I don't have much time tonight, so pasta might be faster, although soup is healthier. Maybe I'll compromise and make a simple vegetable pasta.
A genuine thought process, entirely in English.
And notice that thought process required vocabulary like options, compromise, healthier, time management, simple, words that go beyond basic narration. Your brain is being pushed into more complex English territory.
Weeks 7 and 8?
Weeks 7 and 8, the challenge stage. This is where it gets exciting. You are now spending 45 minutes to an hour in your main English thinking session, and you are introducing what I call English pressure simulations.
What's an English pressure simulation?
This is deliberately recreating mild versions of the social pressure that makes real conversations challenging. The simplest version, record yourself speaking in English for 1 to 2 minutes. Just turn on your phone recorder, press record, and speak in English for 2 minutes about any topic.
Why does recording yourself create pressure?
Because even though you are alone, the knowledge that there is a recording creates a mild version of the social awareness that real conversations involve. Your brain knows someone might hear this, even if that someone is just future you. And that mild social pressure triggers the kind of reactive language production we need to practice.
And it is completely safe because you can delete the recording if you want.
Right. The social risk is managed, but the cognitive experience of performing English under mild pressure is very real and very useful. Over time, you can increase the pressure, share the recordings with an online English learning community, practice with a real conversation partner, attend a virtual English conversation group.
Gradually moving from private practice to semi-public and eventually to full public, real-world conversations.
Each step increases the pressure slightly, and each step builds your reactive fluency and cognitive confidence for the next step.
Weeks 9 and 10?
Weeks 9 and 10, the integration stage. Now, the goal shifts from dedicated English thinking sessions to integrating English thinking into your daily life as much as possible. Instead of one dedicated session, you are aiming to be in English thinking mode for several hours a day, not continuously, but as a significant proportion of your waking hours.
This is where immersion starts to happen.
Right. And immersion does not mean you have to move to an English-speaking country or surround yourself with native speakers all day. Immersion in 2026 is entirely possible through technology. English podcasts during your commute, English audiobooks while you cook, English YouTube videos like this one instead of content in your native language, English social media feeds, English journaling, English music. The more of your sensory and intellectual environment is in English, the more your brain is being trained to operate in English.
It becomes the default language of your environment, even in a non-English speaking country.
Exactly. And that environmental immersion, combined with the internal thinking practice, creates a very powerful synergy. Your environment is constantly feeding your brain English, and your brain is constantly processing that English not just passively, but actively, noticing new vocabulary, absorbing new phrases, reinforcing the patterns you've been building.
What about weeks 11 and 12?
Weeks 11 and 12, the consolidation stage. This is where you take stock of how far you've come, identify your remaining gaps, and solidify the habits that will sustain your English thinking growth beyond these 12 weeks.
Because the 12 weeks is not the end. It is the beginning of a lifelong practice.
Exactly. What you are building in these 12 weeks is not just language skill. You are building a mindset, a habit system, and a lifestyle that supports continuous English growth indefinitely. And in these final 2 weeks, you make explicit and intentional commitments about how you will maintain and deepen this practice going forward.
Things like, I will journal in English every morning. I will listen to 1 English podcast per day. I will have 1 English conversation per week with a real person. I will spend at least 1 hour per day consuming English content.
These kinds of lifestyle commitments are what make the difference between someone who made progress for 3 months and then slipped back into old habits and someone who genuinely achieved lasting fluency. The habits have to outlast the dedicated training period.
Now, Lily, there is something we haven't talked about that I think is really important, and that is mental fatigue. Because thinking in a second language is genuinely tiring, especially in the early stages. And a lot of learners push through the fatigue in a way that is actually counterproductive.
This is so important. Let's talk about mental fatigue honestly, because I think people feel guilty when they get tired from English thinking. They feel like it means they are weak or not progressing, and that guilt makes them either give up or push through in an unproductive way.
But mental fatigue from language practice is a completely normal and natural part of the process.
Completely normal. Think about it this way. When you are building any new cognitive skill, learning to code, learning a musical instrument, learning mathematics, you experience mental fatigue because you are forming new neural connections. That is effortful work. The brain uses real energy, glucose, oxygen. When you are tired, your brain has genuinely expended energy and needs to rest and recover.
So the fatigue is a sign of progress, not a sign of failure.
Exactly. Fatigue means your brain has been working hard. It's building those new pathways. And rest is when the brain actually consolidates those pathways and makes them stronger. This is why sleep is so important for language learning. It is during sleep that the brain processes and solidifies what you practice during the day.
So rest is not the enemy of progress. It is a necessary part of progress.
Rest is part of the training, and this is where the concept of micro rests comes in. Because in any long English thinking session, you shouldn't push for 90 minutes of uninterrupted English thinking without a break. That leads to diminishing returns and burnout.
Instead, structure your sessions with intentional micro-rests built in.
Right. A micro rest is a 2 to 5 minute break during which you allow your brain to completely relax. And here is the key. A micro rest is not scrolling your phone. Scrolling is cognitively engaging. A micro rest is closing your eyes, taking a few deep breaths, and just letting your mind rest, or taking a short walk, or making a cup of tea and just sitting quietly.
The brain needs genuine quiet to consolidate what it has just been doing.
And then, when you return from the micro rest, you will find that English thinking is significantly easier. The brain has processed some of what you just did, cleared some cognitive load, and is ready to go again.
How often should you take a micro-rest?
Generally, every 20 to 30 minutes of intense English thinking practice. So, if you are in a 40-minute session, you might take one micro rest in the middle. If you are in an hour session, you might take 2 micro rests, one at 20 minutes and one at 40 minutes.
And over time, you need fewer micro-rests because your cognitive stamina has increased.
Right. Just like when you start running, you might need to walk every 5 minutes. But over months of training, you can run for 30, 40, 60 minutes without needing to stop. Your lungs and legs get stronger. Your English thinking brain gets stronger in exactly the same way.
Now, let's talk about something that I think is the most counterintuitive part of this entire approach, the role of relaxation in achieving fluency.
Oh, this is really important, and it runs completely counter to the way most people approach language learning. Most people think that fluency requires more effort, more study, more pushing, more discipline.
But that's not quite right, is it?
It is not quite right, because while effort and discipline are absolutely necessary for building skills, the actual experience of fluency, the state where English flows effortlessly and naturally, is a state of relaxation, not effort.
Think about when you speak most naturally in your native language. Are you trying? Are you efforting? Are you thinking hard?
Not at all. You are relaxed. The words just come. There is no gap between thought and speech. It is completely fluid and natural.
And that state of natural fluency can only happen when the skill level is high enough that the brain no longer needs to work hard to produce it. But the key is, even with a high skill level, if the person is anxious or stressed, the fluency decreases.
This is why you might find that your English is better when you are relaxed and casual, talking with a friend you feel comfortable with, than when you are in a high-stakes situation like a job interview, even though the job interview is with someone who speaks English just like your friend.
The knowledge is the same, the ability is the same, but the mental state is different, and the mental state dramatically affects performance.
Right. So building cognitive stamina for English is not just about training harder. It is also about training smarter, which means managing your mental state as part of your practice.
How do you do that?
A few ways. First, develop a pre-practice ritual that puts you in a calm, open, receptive mental state before you begin your English thinking session. This might be 2 minutes of deep breathing, a short walk, a favorite song, whatever helps you feel calm and clear.
Because if you come to your English practice session already stressed and anxious, you are practicing English in an anxious state, and you will continue to associate English with anxiety.
But if you practice in a calm, relaxed state, you are training your brain to associate English with calm, open, expansive mental states. And that association will help keep you calm even in more challenging, real-world situations.
Second strategy?
Second, practice what I call English for joy. This means regularly engaging with English content that you genuinely love, purely for the pleasure of it, with no learning agenda. Watch your favorite English TV show, listen to music you love in English, read a novel that you genuinely can't put down in English. Follow English social media accounts that genuinely make you laugh or inspire you.
Not because you should, because you want to.
Because you want to. And this joyful engagement with English teaches your brain something crucial. English is not a chore. English is pleasure. English is entertainment. English is connection with things and people I love. And when your brain experiences English as joy rather than as effort, the resistance to using it drops dramatically.
The language becomes something you want to use, not something you feel obligated to use.
And that shift in motivation is enormous. Research consistently shows that intrinsic motivation, doing something because you genuinely want to, produces better, faster, more durable learning than extrinsic motivation, doing something because you feel you have to.
So finding and nurturing your genuine love for English, your authentic reasons for wanting to speak it, is not just nice to have, it is a core part of the learning strategy.
Core, essential, non-negotiable, and deeply personal, because your reasons for wanting English are yours. Maybe it is to connect with people from other countries. Maybe it is to advance your career. Maybe it is to access books, films, and music that you love. Maybe it is to travel with confidence. Maybe it is to feel a sense of personal pride and accomplishment. Whatever your reason, nurture it. Come back to it when practice feels hard. Let it fuel you.
And there is one more thing I want to add to this section before we start to wrap up, and that is the importance of community.
Oh yes, this is something that solo practice can never fully replace.
Explain why.
Because language is inherently social. It is a tool for human connection, and at some point in your development, you need to use it for its actual purpose, to connect with real human beings. And that experience of connection, of being understood by another person in English, of understanding them, of sharing ideas and emotions and humor across what used to be a language barrier, that is one of the most powerful motivators and consolidators of all.
When you have a genuine human connection in English, a moment where you completely forget you are speaking a second language because you are so immersed in the exchange, that moment changes something in your brain.
It proves to your brain that it can do this, not in practice, not in theory, in real life, with a real person. And that proof is worth 1,000 hours of solo practice.
So we strongly encourage our viewers to seek out English-speaking communities, online, in person, whatever is accessible to you.
There are incredible online communities of English learners and speakers who meet virtually just to have English conversations. Language exchange apps where you can practice with native speakers who want to learn your language. English conversation clubs, online English speaking groups. These communities are accessible right now to anyone, anywhere in the world.
And they provide exactly the kind of social, real-time English practice that builds reactive fluency, reduces anxiety, and creates the human connection that makes language learning meaningful.
Find your community, speak your English, allow yourself to be imperfect, and watch how fast you grow.
Beautifully said. Now, before we go into our comprehensive wrap-up and summary, I want to take a moment to talk about something we haven't explicitly addressed yet, the specific challenge of stopping the translation habit once it is already deeply established. Because some viewers may be watching this and thinking, I've been translating for 10, 20 years. How do I actually interrupt that habit in the moment?
This is such an important practical question, and the answer is you use pattern interrupts, intentional mental actions that break the automatic translation before it completes.
Tell us how.
Okay, so when you notice yourself beginning to translate, when you feel your brain reaching for your native language before producing English, you immediately do one of the following. Option 1. Take a breath and replace the native language thought with a simple English word or phrase. Stop. English, now. Just those 3 words, in English, in your head, break the automatic translation pattern and reassert English as the active language.
Simple, but powerful.
Option 2. Redirect your attention immediately to your immediate sensory environment. What can you see? What can you touch? And name those things in English. Table, window, coffee, phone. This sensory redirection snaps your brain back into the direct perception mode we talked about in the environmental anchoring section, bypassing the translation center entirely.
Option 3?
Option 3. Start with a filler phrase. Well, the thing is, or you know what, actually? Just start speaking or thinking in English with any phrase. Don't wait until you know what you want to say. Start the English flow and let the content follow. Like starting a car engine, once it's running, the power comes.
The starting is the hardest part. Once you've started, momentum carries you.
Exactly. And the more you practice these pattern interrupts, the faster you can catch yourself in the translation habit and redirect. Over time, you catch it earlier and earlier, sometimes before the translation even begins, until the habit of translation fades and the habit of direct English thinking takes its place.
This is the replacement principle. You don't erase a habit, you replace it.
Right. The brain doesn't really delete habits. Once a neural pathway is formed, it remains. But you can build a stronger pathway alongside it that becomes the preferred route. And with enough practice and reinforcement, the new pathway, direct English thinking, becomes the default. The old pathway, translation, becomes a road less traveled.
And eventually, barely traveled at all.
Exactly. It may never disappear entirely. You may occasionally notice yourself starting to translate, especially in very high-stress situations, and that is fine. It's just the old road, still there, but you no longer live on it. You have a better road now.
I love that metaphor. You are building a better road, and every practice session, every English thought, every moment of direct English connection, it is a brick in that new road.
Every single brick counts, and the road gets smoother and faster every day.
All right, I think we are ready to bring this extraordinary conversation to a close. But before we do our final summary and wrap up, Lily, this has been such a rich and comprehensive discussion. Is there anything you want to add or emphasize before we summarize?
Yes, one thing. And it is the most important thing I can say to anyone who was on this journey of thinking in English. Be patient and be kind to yourself. Learning to think in a new language is one of the most remarkable cognitive achievements a human being can accomplish as an adult. It is genuinely hard work, and it takes time. And there will be days where it feels like you are not progressing, where the translation habit feels stronger than ever, where the words don't come, where you feel frustrated and discouraged. Those days are part of the process.
They are unavoidably part of the process. But here is what I want you to know. On those hard days, your brain is still working. The connections are still forming. The pathways are still being strengthened. Progress in language learning is not always visible day to day. Sometimes it is happening deep beneath the surface, and then one day you are having a conversation in English and you suddenly realize, with a kind of quiet amazement, that you weren't translating. You were just speaking.
That moment, when it happens for the first time, it's extraordinary.
It is one of the most wonderful feelings in the world, and you will experience it. If you practice consistently, if you use the techniques we've shared today, if you are patient and kind with yourself on the hard days, you will experience it. And when you do, you will know that all of the effort was completely, entirely, absolutely worth it.
I believe that with everything I have, and I know Lily does too.
With everything I have.
All right, let's bring everything together with a comprehensive summary of everything we have covered today, because this has been a genuinely packed and powerful lesson, and I want to make sure everyone leaves with a clear, actionable picture of what to do next.
Perfect. So we started today by understanding the problem, the hidden cost of mental translation. We learned that mental translation is not a character flaw or a sign of weakness. It is a deeply ingrained habit formed by the way most of us learned English. A habit that creates a cognitive lag, drains mental energy, interferes with real-time conversation, and over time creates a negative association between English and stress.
And we understood that the solution is not to learn more vocabulary or master more grammar. The solution is to rewire the brain, to build a direct pathway between thoughts and English words, bypassing the native language entirely.
Then we explored the first major technique for building that direct pathway, internal narration. The practice of describing your own life, thoughts, feelings, and experiences in English as they happen, inside your own head, completely privately, starting with simple sentences and gradually building to complex, emotionally rich, and genuinely meaningful English thinking.
We learned to start small, just one daily routine narrated in simple English, and to build up gradually over weeks and months. We understood that imperfect English, thinking in the right direction, is more valuable than perfect translated English. And we explored the powerful technique of imaginary conversations, having dialogues with yourself in English to rehearse the social, interactive dimension of the language.
Next, we went deep into sensory labeling and environmental anchoring, perhaps the most powerful vocabulary building technique available. Instead of learning words by connecting them to their translations, we connect English words directly to physical sensations, visual experiences, smells, temperatures, textures, and personal memories.
The anchor is the experience, not the translation. And words anchored to experience are permanent, instantly accessible, and emotionally resonant, qualities that words learned from lists can never achieve.
Then we tackled reactive fluency, the ability to respond in real time in English without freezing, without translating, without the dreaded blank mind moment that haunts so many learners.
We learned that the freeze happens because of the brain's threat response, the fight or flight activation that temporarily shuts down the language centers. And we learned 3 powerful tools for preventing and recovering from the freeze.
First, fillers and fixed phrases, the cognitive bridges that keep you in English while your brain searches for the right words. Let me think about that. That's a great question. Well, the thing is, these automatic, emotionally neutral phrases buy you time, signal engagement, and keep the conversation flowing without the need for translation.
Second, the power of emotional response. When you respond emotionally first with genuine reactions like, wow, or that's amazing, or really, you bypass the slow analytical brain and engage the faster emotional brain. Emotional responses are faster, more automatic, and more natural. And they warm up the analytical brain for the substantive content that follows.
Third, practice with AI conversation partners and pressure simulations. By having regular, real-time English conversations in low-stakes environments, with patient AI partners, with the mild pressure of self-recording, you build the reflexes of reactive fluency, so that when real-world conversations arrive, your brain has already done this before, in English.
And finally, we mapped out the path to building cognitive stamina for long-term success. The 12-week English Mind Training Plan, progressing from 10-minute daily sessions in weeks 1 and 2 through expansion, deepening, challenge, integration, and consolidation stages, building up to a genuine immersive English lifestyle by weeks 11 and 12.
We addressed mental fatigue honestly, recognizing it as a normal, necessary, and even positive sign of cognitive growth, rather than a weakness or failure. We introduced micro-rests as a tool for maintaining quality of practice without burnout.
We talked about the role of relaxation and joy in achieving fluency, recognizing that fluency is a state of ease, not effort, and that associating English with positive emotional experiences is a core part of the learning strategy.
We address the importance of community, of real human connection in English, as the ultimate consolidator of everything practiced in solo sessions.
And we gave you concrete pattern interrupt techniques for catching yourself in the translation habit and redirecting to direct English thinking in the moment.
This is a complete, integrated approach to thinking in English, not a collection of random tips, but a coherent, neuroscience-informed strategy for rewiring your brain from the inside out.
And it starts not someday, not when you feel ready, not when your vocabulary is bigger or your grammar is better. It starts today, right now, with the next thought you choose to have in English.
Even one English thought, even one moment of direct connection between your experience and an English word, that is the beginning. And every beginning, no matter how small, matters.
So here is your challenge for today. Just one thing. Before you go to sleep tonight, spend 5 minutes narrating your surroundings in English. Just look around wherever you are and describe what you see in English in your head. Simple sentences. No pressure to be perfect. Just you and English and the world around you.
That is 5 minutes. You can absolutely do 5 minutes. And if you do it tonight, do it again tomorrow morning, and the morning after that, and the one after that. And gradually, over days and weeks and months, those 5 minutes will grow, and your English thinking will grow with them.
We believe in you. Completely, genuinely, wholeheartedly. This journey you are on, the journey of learning to think in English, to feel in English, to connect with the world in English, It is one of the most courageous and rewarding journeys a person can take. And every step you take on this journey, you are becoming a more connected, more capable, more confident version of yourself.
That's what English gives you, not just a language, a larger world.
A larger world. I love that.
And if you're enjoying this lesson, and I truly hope today's deep dive has given you real, practical, actionable tools, please take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who is learning English, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.
We put an enormous amount of love and effort into creating these comprehensive English learning lessons. And your support, your likes, your shares, your subscriptions, your comments, all of it tells us that this work matters, and it motivates us to keep creating more.
We genuinely read your comments. We genuinely want to hear from you. So tell us in the comments, which technique from today's video are you most excited to try? Internal narration? Environmental anchoring? Filler phrases? AI conversation practice? Let us know.
And one more thing, if you want even more English listening and speaking practice, make sure you check out our podcast playlist right here on this channel. There are so many fantastic episodes, long, natural, conversational English lessons designed to help you improve your listening, your speaking, your fluency, and your confidence. The same way this video works, but in audio format. Perfect for your commute, your walk, your workout, or any moment when you want to surround yourself with English.
The link to the playlist is right there on the channel. Go check it out after this video. We think you are going to love it.
And on that note, Bruce, this has been such an incredible conversation today. I feel like we really went somewhere meaningful.
We did, and I am so grateful for every viewer who stayed with us all the way through this video. You are the kind of dedicated, serious, passionate English learner that makes teaching this beautiful language such a joy and a privilege.
To every one of you watching, wherever you are in the world, whatever level you are at, however long you've been on this journey, we are cheering for you. Every single one of you.
Keep going, keep practicing, keep choosing English, and keep being curious about the world that this language opens up for you.
Until next time, this is Lily.
And Bruce.
Reminding you that your fluency is not a destination. It is a journey, and you are already on your way.
Take care, everyone. We will see you in the next lesson.
Bye for now.